Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
7:06 on this Thursday, 7th day of November. We're now in our second day of the President-elect Donald Trump 47 era, and there's a whole lot to discuss, as you can imagine. I'm really looking forward to my conversation in 30 minutes. Patrice, I hope you are too. We're going to have some interesting stuff to discuss with Andy McCarthy, not just about the current criminal and civil trials that are pending against Donald Trump, but honestly, what's going on right now that we don't even know about? We know
Very
now,
true.
8 years ago, that James Comey and the Justice Department, they were investigating Donald Trump. Are they doing it again? And how can we stop it? 8:05, KT McFarland tells us about the state of the world right now, as we're already seeing a change in our adversaries' attitudes towards America, thanks to this week's election. That's Patrice Onwuka on a Thursday.
That's right.
And I'm Larry O'Connor. And joining
Good
us
morning.
right now. Good morning. I was waiting for a happy Thursday from you.
No. We say the yay for tomorrow.
I suppose. I don't know. Every day is a yay right now because Brent Bozell, we the American people defied all conventional wisdom. We defied political status quo and expectations. Yeah. It was a win for the ages, not just in that meaningless popular vote that hasn't been won by a Republican since barely George W. Bush did in 2004, but then in the electoral landslide, you got to go all the way back to George Herbert Walker Bush really running on Ronald Reagan's third term in 1988. Brent Bozell, just before we get into the media aspect of this, you've been around for a while. You've seen some elections. Reflect on what just happened.
Well, I think what you saw, it reminded me of Reagan. I mean, Bush 41, as you said, that was a bit of an anomaly because he was riding completely on Reagan's shoulders. In fact, it was Reagan who pushed him at the end. Now, this reminded me more of Reagan's numbers, where you saw the numbers throughout the night, and you're saying, "Oh my God, he's winning." A credit to the Trump campaign. They ran, and it turns out they ran an excellent campaign. People were scratching their heads and saying, "Why the hell is he in Virginia at the end? Why? Because they thought he could take it, and they came close to taking Virginia. Why was he in North Carolina over and over and over at the end? Because they saw that this was going to be close, and they pulled out North Carolina. They really knew how to manage him and to put him in the right places. He had the right message. It was resonating. The most important thing was that there was nonstop attacks on him in the press, and the American people soundly rejected it.
You know what's so interesting, Brent, is in the closing days, I thought based on how the demographics broke out, President Trump put together this amazing coalition of so many different Americans who are united and not divided by race or gender, but really around class. You would think that was the message that the media took away. But Michael, if we could play cut 18, here's what CNN's David Axelrod, said on CNN yesterday. I would love for you to respond to David Axelrod, Brent, because I maybe he took away something different than I did. Cut 18.
Let's be honest about this, okay? Let's be absolutely blunt about it. There were appeals to racism in this campaign, and there is racial bias in this country, and there is sexism in this country, and anybody who thinks that did not in any way impact on the outcome of this race is wrong.
Brent, respond to that.
Sure. That is one of the attacks on the American people for having elected Donald Trump. I'll give you a few more. MSNBC's Stephanie Rule attacked the American people as being uneducated. Sonny Hostin on The View attacked white women. Al Sharpton attacked the American people as having a racial and gender bias and being misogynistic. CBS chief political correspondent John Dicker has said that the American people don't have respect for institutions and aren't ready for a female president. Jonathan Capehart on PBS, paid for by you. He said he came to this election with an open mind, but now he can't help It's see if the American people have given up on democracy. Remember, it's all these attacks on democracy.
Yes.
MSNBC also said that, I love this. This is my favorite one. Brian Williams said, Democrats are former student council presidents. Republicans are stone cold killers. I do not make that up. Now, here's the great thing. Here's the fun thing. The attacks, as we've got documented throughout the campaign, it was 85% negative on Trump, 78% positive on Kamala Harris. Those attacks you're seeing right now were going on for the entire campaign. What happened as a result? How effective were they? A Gallup poll showed that at the start of this campaign, Trump's positive was 41%, his unfavorable was 55%. That's a net negative of 14. When the media got done trashing him for 2 years, his positive was 44%, his negative was 54%. That's 10%. He went up 4% with the American people after those attacks. But it gets better still. It gets better still. How did the media do in this? How about rating the media? The Gallup organization did a poll at the end with the American people trust in the media. They found it at 31%, the lowest in recorded history. Then another poll called YouGov that looks at intensity on polling, asking the question. I've put forward the statement. I really like the news media. That's down to 7% of the American people. So what happened? The national news media got the living crap knocked out of it by the American people. That's all there's to say about it. Yeah. So what's going to happen is in the coming days, they're going to attack every level of the American people for being idiotic, and the American people are going to continue understanding and appreciating the fact that this is an elitist news media that can't stand the poor and the uneducated and the deplorables and the garbage in America.
Brent Bozell, the founder and president of Media Research Center. That is stunning what you just shared with us. So I got to follow up then, because these are entities that are owned by corporations. And in any other industry, Brent Bozell, when you have that kind of a devastating failure as the media has just experienced, and let's just be clear, it's not like we didn't hear what the media was telling us about Donald Trump. The American people just said resoundingly, we don't trust you, we don't believe you, we don't find you credible. I mean, that's part of the formula of being in the news business. You've got to be believable and credible. Any other business facing this kind of absolute failure, and by the way, at the same time, seeing competitors like podcasts, like streaming news services that don't need broadcast or cable connections to be able to deliver news. There is high competition right now, and not only is the audience, the customer, going to that competition, but the product, the candidates are going to that competition and ignoring the corporate media. Will they get it? Will any other business, Brett, would take a very hard look at themselves and say, we're bad. We need to fix ourselves. We need to improve. Will they?
Sure. You know, I don't think so. And here's why. First of all, you're absolutely right. Look at CNN. CNN, you know, it used to have a liberal bias, but not be as militant as it is now, where they hire and then immediately fire any conservative who comes to work there. Just ask Ken Cuccinelli, ask Rick Santorum, ask a bunch of other people. If they were looking at Fox News, they would see Fox News is got on a regular basis 3 times, 4 times their audience. They would be saying, you know, maybe we should bring some conservatives on here and balance this place again. But here's why they're not going to do it. Look at me locally. Look what happened when Jeff Bezos came to that conclusion as well. Jeff Bezos is a leftist.
Yeah.
Yet he has seen at the Washington Post that it's out of control with this left-wing bias. It's not supposed to be this way. And so he said, we've got to bring some conservatives. He didn't say we have to make this conservative. He said we have to bring on some conservatives.
Right.
And look at the reaction from the journalists at the Washington Post. So what's going to happen is, you do have, Larry, you're absolutely right. It's the only institution in America where the staff control the product, not management. So it's not going to change because they're completely controlled by left-wingers, and these left-wingers are not going to allow conservatives in there. Look, they hate conservatives. It's not that they disagree with conservatives. They not only hate they think conservatives are a threat. Look at all the attacks, the nonstop attacks on Donald Trump being a threat to democracy. They weren't just attacking Donald Trump. They were attacking the 50-some% of the American people who voted for Donald Trump.
Brent Bozell, Media Research Center, you and your entire team over there from top to bottom at Media Research Center, through Newsbusters, through Rapid Response, through the surveys, through pushing back on big tech, absolutely changes the game with regard to how we talk about politics and news and everything that also affects our lives, Brett. And again, congratulations on the great work your team does and continues to do. What, in your almost 40th year now? Unbelievable. Thank you, Brett.
We're getting old, but we're still drinking.
If 40's old, I'm in big trouble. Thanks, Brett.
Thank you,
Take
Brett.
care. It's 7:17. Let's get to Jamie Whitten.
Not just because of the presidential election, but because if you have money in the stock market, you saw your portfolio skyrocket. The Dow soared over 1,500 points, the best day since 2022, gaining an average of about 3.5%. We saw this S&P 500 gained 146 points, or 2.5%, and the tech-heavy NASDAQ composite rose 3%. President Trump has said that day one, once he's elected, that the economy would start to boom. If the stock market rally yesterday is a signal of what's to come, then I think he might just make very good on that promise. Yeah. So, I mean, here's what's going on, folks. Number one, deregulation. A lot of the regulations in the banking industry, labor regulations that have been put on businesses are expected to be overturned, rescinded under President Trump once he gets into office. The tax cuts, the 2017 tax cuts, we know that a number of provisions will expire at the end of the year, and so that is going to be probably a day one, agenda one priority for President Trump. And frankly, now he has the Senate, and he has, hopefully, fingers crossed, the House. Yep. I myself have been in planning meetings, and I can attest that the staff on the Hill, they have been doing a lot of preparatory work, and they're going to hit the ground running in January on the tax cuts. So you've got that, and even things like the tariffs that I know not everybody, some people have pretty strong feelings about, but that could actually positively impact the value of the dollar. So between, the deregulation, the scaling back of government, the tax cuts, I think you're going to see a huge pro-growth agenda from President Trump, and that is what the market is feeding on right now. So keep at it. I think this. What do you think?
I think you're right. I think. Listen, it reminds me a lot of last year. If I remember right, last year, 8 years ago, the day after the election, there was some uncertainty in the market, if I remember right. But then the day after that, if I remember right, it was Thursday after the Tuesday election of 2016. Absolute rally on Wall Street. The powers that be recognized Donald Trump means a new game in town, and our economy is going to come roaring back. This time they did it the day after the election. Unbelievable. And also, I want to read into one thing. If you look at it, what was, I think we ended around 1,200 points yesterday up. But at one point, as you said, it was up 1,500 points. One of the top movers yesterday was Tesla. Tesla saw an increase of nearly 12% in their stock price yesterday. And I want you to think about that for a second. Tesla, of course, the electric vehicle car company owned by and founded by Elon Musk. The stock went through the roof. That's not because suddenly Tesla is worth more. It's because suddenly everyone knows that since Kamala Harris didn't win, Elon Musk and all of his holdings and all of his entities will not face persecution and punishment and retribution at the hands of her federal government. That's really what this is. that they knew. Listen, Wall Street has no politics. They're not red, they're not blue, they're green. And they knew that because Elon Musk extended himself and participated in this election, if Kamala Harris won, that would hurt his companies because Kamala Harris would sick the government on him and his businesses because that's what they do. Tesla shot through the roof yesterday because Wall Street recognized, oh, okay, it's safe. It's safe to put money in this company because the Democrats didn't win. Let that sink in. It's 7:23.
Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
7:36. It's O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here as we continue charging through this incredibly busy and historic week. Coming up at 8:05, KT McFarland is going to give us a look-see on the international reaction and how merely by winning the presidency this week, does President-elect Donald Trump actually affect world affairs even before he becomes inaugurated? There's some indications that that is the case. We'll get to it with KT McFarland. I'm Larry O'Connor, and that there is Patrice Onwuka. Good morning, Patrice.
Good morning, Larry.
And joining us right now is Andrew McCarthy. He is a former assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York. Joining us now. Andy, thank you so much for being here.
Morning. How are you guys?
Not bad,
Good.
thanks. A couple legal issues that need to be cleaned up here. First of all, we got the announcement yesterday that Jack Smith, the special prosecutor... Sorry?
You think?
You think, yeah. Special Prosecutor Jack Smith is shutting down his affairs, and appropriately, of course, this is due to the fact that you cannot investigate a sitting president. I'm struck by the language in the process of shutting down. Is there some other shoe to fall here? Because Jack Smith seems pretty intent on inflicting harm on Donald Trump.
Well, I think that there's more going on here than Jack Smith. I think he's getting marching orders, right? Because there's a few moving pieces that need to be sort of brought together. One of them, I think, Larry, is that everyone knows Biden's going to pardon his son, right? And he promised that he wouldn't, but now that the election's over and that electoral calculus is no longer operative, he's going to do it. So he'll be deeply criticized for that if that's all he does, because he promised he wouldn't do it. And it's a corrupt act, even though all of us who have children can kind of understand it. But it's a lot easier for it to go down with the country, I think, if it's kind of a clemency package where Hunter gets pardoned, but the Biden-Harris Justice Department dismisses the cases against Trump. So if you look at it like that, then I don't think people are going to be rubbed the wrong way about it. So I don't think Jack Smith is the main actor here. I think it's probably the administration and the Justice Department. To the extent that Smith is saying they're in the process of it, remember when the Trump Justice Department tried to dismiss the case against General Flynn and the judge wouldn't allow it?
Yeah.
This is that situation again. There's a provision in the federal rules of criminal procedure that says that you need leave of the court to dismiss a pending indictment. Now, constitutionally, that's a very poorly written statute because as a matter of constitutional law, the court can't tell the prosecutor, the Justice Department, to prosecute anyone. It's a unilateral executive power to decide what cases to bring and what cases to continue to pursue. But the way the rule is written, stupidly, they put in this provision that says you need leave of the court. So they will need Judge Chutkan to sign off on a dismissal of the indictment in Washington. And that's why, frankly, I think it's important that it come from the Biden-Harris Justice Department rather than have to wait until Trump gets in, because I think she's more likely to be accommodating if she's asked by this Justice Department than the next one.
Well,
Andy,
wait, what does that tell you about the judge? But I'll let that slide. Go ahead, Patrice.
Well,
yes.
But what she would say, Larry, is that, this is Trump asking for his own behalf, his own benefit, whereas if the Biden people do it, it looks more dispassionate because they brought the case in the first place.
Sure.
So, Andy, yesterday we heard former Attorney General Bill Barr say, he literally called on all of the state and federal attorneys generals to drop their cases and prosecutions against President Trump. I'm thinking about Fani Willis in Georgia. I'm thinking about some of the other federal cases. Do you think they're going to listen? I mean, what's going to happen with the Georgia case, which, from what I understand, is still in a pretty tenuous position?
Yeah, they ought to get rid of that case anyway, Patrice, because it's a catastrophe. I mean, it was a dopey indictment, a RICO case. Like, they treated these 20 people who were trying to get Trump, trying to reverse the result of the 2020 election lawfully. By the way, most of these people were, they're operating in lawsuits and congressional action. They weren't like this idea that this was like a violent thing. At that level is just wrong. But she indicted as a RICO, as if these 20 people were in the Gambino family. And, frankly, the 20 people, the only thing they ever did together in their lives was get indicted. I think most of them don't even, know each other. So anyhow, that case it was conceptually wrong, and now it's tied up in litigation because she should have been disqualified. That's on appeal, and we haven't even gotten to Trump's immunity stuff yet. So that case is going nowhere. And once Trump is president, under the supremacy clause, the Justice Department is going to come in any place where they try to proceed against him criminally and say the case needs to be suspended while he is the sitting president. They can, they can revive it afterwards, like in 2029 when he's 83 and these acts are all like a decade old. If they want to go after him at that point, they could think about it. But I think that case will be on ice. The New York case is the troublesome one because Judge Merchan is supposed to rule on Trump's post-trial motion next Tuesday, including the immunity motion. And assuming he's going to deny Trump's motions, the thing is, since there's an immunity component to it, immunity is supposed to be instantly appealable. So Trump's going to want to appeal, and Merchan has scheduled sentencing for November 26th. So what I hope is going to happen is Merchan realizes that Trump's allowed to appeal immunity, and that case will just be tied up in appeals. And in the meantime, Trump will come in, and it'll be suspended under the supremacy clause, and then we'll see if they want to pick up with it in 2029. But what you have to worry about is if the appellate courts tell Merchan he's allowed to go ahead and sentence Trump if he decides to sentence him on November 26th. I should add, I don't mean to go on and on, but since you asked, Trump may get a prison term. It would be ridiculous for Merchan to impose one, but he could. But what people should understand is these felonies, even though the label is felonies, under New York law, they're not serious enough to command instant detention. So he would get bail pending appeal. He's not like everybody who thinks that Judge Merchan's going to send the president-elect to Rikers Island on the 26th. That ain't happening. He's not going to. It's not going to happen.
As much as they'd like it to. Andy, quickly, 8 years ago at this time, it wasn't even on our radar, but James Comey, the FBI, Peter Strzok, various members of the upper echelon, they were conducting a counterterrorism counterterrorism investigation into the Trump
counterintelligence.
Counterintelligence, thank you.
Yep.
And that ended up spilling over into the Trump presidency. 3 times, President-elect and President Trump asked James Comey to his face, am I under investigation? 3 times James Comey denied it. Have lessons been learned, Mr. McCarthy? Or should we, based on past precedent, assume that there are actors within the Justice Department right now that are continuing these practices for the incoming president? And what can Donald Trump do about it?
It's the other side of the equation, Larry, that I think is different, which is the personnel in the White House. Trump, when he first came in, he's a business guy. He's not a politician. A lot of the people he brought in, they didn't know where the levers were when they got to the, higher echelon of the executive branch. Now I think Trump is going to bring in polished, experienced people. Like if he had a Bill Barr or, somebody who really knew what he was doing on national security law when he came in the first time, Comey would not have been able to run rings around them. Comey had them intimidated thinking that if they asked him to see what he had, what evidence there was, that he would accuse them of obstruction of justice. Whereas a Bill Barr type, either White House counsel or attorney general, would have said, I want on my desk in an hour the files, and you show me what the evidence is in this case. And they were afraid to do that. Now I don't think they'd be afraid to do that. So you're not going to be able to have, the FBI is not going to be able to run wild on this White House. Plus, I think Trump now knows how important the FBI and the Justice Department are. So I would hope that at the top of the list in the transition is he's got to have an attorney general who's really good, who he can trust. And I think he'll also, I'm not as down on Chris Wray as a lot of people are, but I think the president should have his own FBI director, and I think this one will.
All right, we'll leave it there.
Terrific stuff. Thank you,
hopefully
Andy.
we won't have any more conversations about that, Mr. McCarthy, and we'll talk about some real important stuff that could get done. But
I sure hope so.
Thank you,
Yep,
sir.
yep.
7:46. Let's get to Jamie Whitney with the carpet cleaning traffic.
So much truth, you'll hope for traffic so you can hear it all on the Vince Colonnese Show, weekdays 3 to 6, right here on WMAL.
As you know, Kamala Harris gave her concession address yesterday at Howard. The contents of the address weren't really remarkable. They were pretty boilerplate. What was remarkable, Patrice, did you see this? While they were waiting for Kamala Harris to emerge, well, first, a squirrel ran across the stage.
That was
tantalized
pretty funny.
everybody. It was Peanut reincarnate, I think, sending a message. But beyond that, while they were waiting, the camera panned over at C-SPAN to an interesting, fiery exchange between Nancy Pelosi and Donna Brazile, the former DNC chair, now ABC commentator. And Muriel Bowser was right in the middle of it, just sort of listening in. But, boy, her face looked pretty grim, too. And it was animated. There were, like, lots of gesticulating Tim Wall-style arm movements going on here. Finger pointing. It seemed kind of, what do you think was going on? Seems sort of like the Democrats are really sort of pointing the finger, and there are lots of recriminations.
Nancy's saying, why didn't you get Kamala Harris some debate questions in advance, Donna? I mean, that's a low blow. Sorry, Donna.
Yes,
I actually know
exactly.
her. But listen, it's the finger pointing. Obviously, I think that Donna Brazile represents the Obama powers that orchestrated everything, and Nancy Pelosi was the tool who had to get the dirty job of getting Joe Biden out.
Right.
She's on the outs. Nancy Pelosi's on the outs. The House is probably gone from Democratic control, and now she's getting fingers pointed at her. And I think she's probably saying, listen, I did what I could. It was incumbent on you guys to get her over the line.
That's right. I ruined what was left of my reputation. I ruined my friendship and legacy with Joe Biden, and I will always be remembered for this, and you couldn't even win. Yeah, I think you're right. 7:54.